that up all the time. Bob Dugan wanted to read that for us, and he's going to come take it down. Lynn said, that's not going to be up here tonight, is it? And Lynn said, I've got some small candelabras I want to bring in. Now, I know this is going to be tough for some of our folks, and so but I need to let you know this. Next Sunday, the overflow is going to be blocked off. I'm sorry, but we are trying to promote making that a garden of giving starting next Sunday, to where all of the pews in this section will be filled with food. Now, as you know, the Hart County Food Pantry, they sell items that you donate to them, and they sell the items to purchase food. Now, they lose about $1,200 a year, and when their funds eventually run out, we're going to be in a mess. So when we gather food, that means they have to buy less, and so it helps their budget. Last year was the first year in probably about 7 or 8 years that they have come close to breaking even. They only lost $500 last year because of all the food, primarily, that our church gave them. Now, so my feeling is we've got our elementary kids groups, and they have created drawings of themselves, and we will place those drawings in the overflow section. So when you put a food item in there, you will know in your mind it helps a person, a family. And I hope that we can fill up all of that section with food beginning next Sunday. Now, you can bring it tonight. That's why I've got my peanut butter here. Just to remind you, there's shopping list in the bulletin. So please remember that. I want us, when we bring that food, it to be so much food that they don't know what to do with it, because it's just so much. We need meats, and those things are in your bulletins, and they're also on all the tables if you want to know what to get. We also help about 60 to 100, how can I say this, senior citizens that are economically distressed every month with a donation basket. But the problem is, with the senior citizens, and you're going to laugh at this, you have to make sure everyone is exactly the same or they get mad. So, because if one gets something that the other didn't, then that's not good. So that's why it's important that you buy what's on the list. Are you with me? So we have to keep that, and that keeps everybody happy. And that's our job, is to make everybody happy all the time. All right. A lot of good things going on. So just wanted to remind you of what we're going to do. We're not going to block out the Christmas tree, but we're going to pull down those. And that way you'll be able to see in there, but it's going to be hard to sit in there, because hopefully it's going to be full of food. Now, let me remind you that on Wednesday nights we're pulling together all the things to make it all kind of work. If you'd like to join us this Wednesday, we're going to talk about episode 2. Now, today we're talking about Empire Strikes Back. And let me remind you of something very important. When you mess with the Empire, they're going to get you. When you mess with the Empire, they're going to get you. That's why I pulled our text, which is usually the third Sunday text of Advent. I pulled it up for our use today. Now, I've got a couple of things to show you on the screen. We're going to talk about Star Wars for a few minutes, and then we're going to go into our text. But anyway, all right. But I had to show you the beginning, because that makes me have chills. I'm so excited. I have time. If I had time to show, well, next Sunday I will. All right. Let me just tell you, this is our light quote. Every Sunday we're going to have a light quote. And let me just prepare you mentally. This sermon is awesome. I'm just telling you. Okay? It's a good sermon. And you're going to leave here ready to go out and save the world. And if you don't, I'm sorry. All right. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Doug Poole was coaching a 5th grade boys basketball team. Now, Doug's son, Lucas, was the only white player on the Hart County team his senior year. He was the token white kid, okay, on the Hart County team. Now, Doug said, I want to take my team to go see Lucas play. And so they're at the Hart County gym. Players come running around the court and come out. And Lucas is the very last one, probably the shortest one on the team. And the boys say, which one is yours? And Doug says, the one with the straight hair. Children do not notice color. They don't notice socioeconomic status. They don't notice wealth or poverty. Adults teach racism. Adults teach hate. And it's up to us in Christ to bring light on that. And that is where part of the solution to our world will come from Christ. And making sure we teach our kids properly. And be very careful what we teach our kids. This is the scene that I worked on, and this is Anakin Skywalker. This is from episode 1. And he's always got the possibility of greatness, but there's always a cross, and there's a chance that he may become Darth Vader. We know he does. He chooses that as a long discourse over 3 movies. The very end of episode 3 is when he becomes fully the Darth Vader, the Sith Lord Darth Vader. Now, you and I all have the possibilities of greatness, but we make the choices as adults. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you lived. It doesn't matter what your experiences were as a child. As adults, we make the choice whether we do right or whether we do wrong. The problem in our world is we blame everybody but ourselves. Now, we want to blame somebody because we dare not blame ourselves. But this is the reality of our world. You all have the opportunity and the chance of greatness, but you've got to choose greatness. It's just like peace. You have to choose peace. Somebody told me, who was it? It was Dick told me this morning, and it reminded me of something I've heard so often. Joy is a choice. You've got to choose to be happy. Somebody was telling me this week they were having a bad day. They couldn't find a parking place at the mall. If you ever think you're having a bad day, you call me, and I'm going to tell you somebody's had a worse day. You're talking about a bad situation right now. It's Tom Manter. That's a horrible. I sat with him for a long time in the hospital, just depressed, and he has Parkinson's, and his drugs and his pain medication for the knee is interacting with his Parkinson's, and so he's a writer, and he can't even hold a pen well enough to write. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. But Gail and Tom still, in the midst of all that, still have joy in their life. Same thing with Lynn Shaw, but she's been through this week, and just be blessed by such a presence that can cook so well. Just by a blessing that can make unbelievable things for the pastor. And should say. Let me show you 2 spiritual things, part of the Star Wars experience that probably most of you don't know, but are pretty interesting. This is the Jedi Code, and it's the code of all Jedi Knights. And it's kind of, listen to this. It says that there is no emotion, there is only peace, there's no ignorance, there is knowledge, there is no passion, there is serenity, there is no chaos, there is harmony, there is no death, there is the Force. That's really pretty good theology. With a couple of twerks there, it would be really better, but remember, these movies were written out of spiritualism and all of the things that have kind of come together in this, and that's what it's about. But let me show you the opposite of this, which is the Sith code, and this is the code of the dark side. And listen to this theology. Peace is a lie. There's only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken, and the force shall set me free. This is a theology that is prevalent today. This exists in our world. You've seen it on bumper stickers. The one with the most toys wins. And I'm here to tell you that's a theology. And it's a theology that exists that says, well, God wants us to have wealth and us to be happy all the time. Because only in our happiness and joy can we have power and then eventually control over others. Are you with me? And that is prevalent in many churches. And it's evil, and it's wrong, and it's dark. Because it leads to destruction. There is no peace in this, but it is prevalent. I want to show you two scenes from the movie The Empire Strikes Back. It's episode 5. It was the second one. Did real well, made a lot of money. But everybody came out and hated it. It revealed a real big secret. I'm going to show you that. There are two scenes that I think are the most important. The first is with Yoda. Yoda is a Jedi Knight, but he's a green puppet. He's about that big. Who would think that a green puppet could be a Jedi Knight and be powerful? But there's some things he says in there that are pretty profound. And then the next scene is the best kept secret of all time. And I'll show you that. So let's watch this.
Become a powerful ally.
Yes, you would be a great asset. Can it be done?
He will join us or die, Master.
Look, I'm sure it's delicious. I just don't understand why we can't see Yoda now.
Patience! For the Jedi, it is time to eat as well. Eat! Ah! Good.
How far away is Yoda? Will it take us long to get there?
Not far. No, they're not far. Patience. Soon you will be with him. I know. Why must you become Jedi?
Mostly because of my father, I guess.
Father? Powerful Jedi was he? Powerful Jedi.
Come on. How could you know my father? You don't even know who I am. No, I don't even know what I'm doing here. We're wasting our time.
I cannot teach him. The boy has no patience.
You will learn patience.
Much anger in him. Like his father.
Was I any different when you told me?
He is not ready.
Yoda. I am ready. Ben, I can be a Jedi. Ben, tell him I'm ready.
Ready, are you? What knows? Ready. For 800 years have I trained Jedi. I don't count to a like you. Honor is to be trained. A Jedi must have the deepest commitment. The most serious mind. This one, a long time have I watched. All his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. Adventure, excitement. A Jedi craves not these things. You are reckless.
So was I, if you remember.
He is too old. Yes, too old to begin the training.
But I've learned so much.
Will you finish what he begins?
I won't fail you. I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
I thought that enemies wouldn't be enemies. Of course I know better.
You are beaten. It is useless to resist. Don't let yourself be destroyed as Obi-Wan did. There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you. Luke, you do not yet realize your importance. You have only begun to discover your power. Join me, and I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. I'll never join you! If you only knew the power of the dark side. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No, I am your father.
It's not true. That's impossible.
That was the greatest kept secret of all time. Not even the actors and actresses that were in the movie knew that Darth Vader was going to end up being his father. And so they filmed that with raw emotion because they're like, no way, there's no way this can happen. And so that was kind of cool how that came together. The two things I just want to tell you that Yoda said, you will be afraid because peace comes at a price. Peace within our soul, peace within society, peace within the world is costly. And then there's also the chance, as you heard Darth Vader say, that you don't know the power of the dark side. And I'm here to tell you and to remind you the dark side has great power. It really, really does. And it's always tugging on us constantly. This is a reminder of our constant theme throughout the whole series. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. That's John 1:5. Our text today comes from Jeremiah and also from Matthew. As I said, it's usually the text used on the third Sunday of Advent. Jeremiah 31:15. It's an interesting text. It says this, and usually we just read it. We have no commentary work on it. And it says, in Ramah, a voice is heard crying, weeping loudly. Rachel mourns for her children and refuses to be comforted because they are dead. And then Matthew 2:16, when Herod found out that the wise men from the east had tricked him, he was very angry. He gave orders for his men to kill all the boys who lived in or near Bethlehem and were 2 years old and younger. This was based on what he had learned from the wise men. And then after this, Matthew quotes Jeremiah 31:15. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. The weeping Rachel of Jeremiah 31 is a powerful, powerful image. It's the weeping matriarch, utterly inconsolable, because it says her children are no more. Now, most biblical interpretations put that as they are dead, But really, the Hebrew is much stronger than that. It doesn't necessarily mean dead. It means that they cease to exist. It means that they are no more. So she's weeping because her children are no more. The weeping matriarch reflects the trauma of the children of Israel, because Jeremiah was written because they had been conquered by the Babylonians and were being carted off into exile. They understood what it meant by war, death, and exile. And so when it says her children are no more, it meant that the nation, the people of Israel, no longer exist because they have been conquered by the Babylonians. The weeping matriarch shows us that hope cannot be claimed easily. Life is hard at times, and sometimes is filled with disappointment and unexpected sorrow. Do you know that? Sometimes things don't work out the way that we planned them to, right? That's just the way it always is. It always is. Okay, let's look at this a little bit deeper. Why Rachel? Who was Rachel? You know, she was the wife of. You're close, but not right. But I don't want to embarrass you for being incorrect. Wrong. All right. Who is Rachel? Rachel. Okay, let me go back. Let's go back. Who is the trickster? Who is the trickster? Jacob. Jacob is the trickster. He tricked his father out of what? Birthright. Remember who was it? Who was his brother? Esau wanted to eat Cracker Barrel, chicken and dumplings. And Jacob said, here, have this, and I'll take the birthright. He said, okay, go ahead. So Jacob flees. He ends up with his uncle, who is named what? Does anybody know? This is BBS 101. Laban. So in Hebrew, we don't know how to necessarily pronounce it. Nobody does, so it doesn't matter. So whatever I say is correct. All right? So some people say Laban, Laban. Remember that Hebrew didn't have vowels, and so nobody knows exactly. It could have different things. So he ends up with Laban, and he falls in love with a hottie. Who is the hottie? Rachel. So they get married. But something happens. And so then the next morning he wakes up and says, the big shocker. I am your father. No. Okay. See, I just showed you that. All right. He wakes up in the morning and says, what's happened? You're not Rachel, you are Leah. Now, Leah was sweet. She was good with animals, but she wasn't Rachel. And so then he had to work longer. The trickster had been tricked. Now then they decided they're going to move to a suburb of Atlanta. And so they gather all their things, and he's got all his wives, and he's got all his goats, and his sheep, and his all this stuff. And they move, and Laban says, you have stolen the sacred family idols. You know what that is? Cuisinart supplies they had in their kitchen. All right. And so he goes running out to meet them. Rachel, she is married to the trickster, and she's cunning herself, and so she hides the family idols under the saddle of the camel, and he doesn't find them. And so she's got some sense herself, and she's got some ability and creativity. But she also has a very hard time because she, at this point of the narrative, is barren. She cannot have children. And in this day and age, in a patriarchal society, when you have multiple wives, if you are barren, you're considered cursed. And so she struggles with the social situation at home. There's concubines and other wives that are having kids right and left, and she's stuck and can't do that. And so there's a social sense of where she is. Are you with me? So there's struggle, there's pain, and then she persists and she makes it through, and she has two boys. What are the boys' names? You remember? One of them had a pretty coat, Joseph, and what was the other one name? Remember? Benjamin. But sadly, in the birth of Benjamin in childbirth, what happens? Rachel dies. And then Jacob builds her a beautiful tomb. And in the Old Testament, it gives, because it was very important. Rachel was an important part of this narrative. And so it says 3 places where Rachel's tomb is. And you can go to all 3 today, and they will tell you are in Rachel's tomb in Israel. But you've heard of Rachel's tomb recently because it was burned, remember? And they also had had some damage there because Jews and Palestinians and also Christians consider it sacred and holy. And like I said, there's three signs of why they believe it is. Now, so Rachel, she's got all of these things. And in Israel's historical imagination, okay, you're with me. Now, she gave birth to two. She died in childbirth. She can't mourn for what? She can't mourn for her children. She can't do it. It doesn't fit in the narrative. So this is a historical anomaly. It is viewed as an image of the people of Israel that have been conquered by Babylon. It is viewed as an image. Are you with me? So it's not a realistic scene, it's an imaginary scene. This is in Oakland Cemetery in Atlanta, and this is Naomi grieving. That's the name of this statue, a beautiful statue by the bookstore. And it's a statue of a grieving mother. And so Rachel is seen as the grieving mother over all the children of Israel. Are you with me? Because they had been destroyed and carted off in exile to Babylon. It's the author that I was looking through some of the commentary work calls it trans-historical and iconic. I would never speak that way, but that sounds really intelligent. All right. Ramah. Another question. Why Ramah? Ramah in Hebrew means high place, which means a place up on a hill, or it means a high place meaning a very spiritual place. Dick and Julie's farm. Very spiritual. Are you with me? So you know that. A very spiritual place. The Godstones. Just kidding. All right, a very spiritual place. Like here. This is a very spiritual place. So this could be, in Hebrew, could be Ramah. But there's another reason. And this is probably the reason it was mentioned. Ramah is the place. It's in Benjamin's territory, and it's where Samuel was buried. And it's also one of the three places mentioned in the Old Testament where, say it with me, Rachel is buried. And it's a crossroads where the children of Israel went on their way to Babylon. So it would be where they would go to remember the past as they're heading into the future. And so it's a pretty sad place. It's where you would go to remember the past as you move into a future of exile. That's what I want. Now, there's the next phrase in the line where it says, it says that Rachel is crying and weeping loudly. Crying and weeping loudly. I'm not a Hebrew scholar by any means, but this is important because Hebrew is a language that oftentimes, it's like our word onomatopoeia, that the word sounds like what it is, and these are the words for weeping loudly. Nech, if you're in the front, sorry if I spit on you. Nechi dachi. And it's almost like a guttural expression of sorrow. And so Rachel is not only weeping, but she's sorrowful, even in her language. It's almost like the word from Ruth, bitter, mara. It sounds like something detestable. The sound of weeping precedes the identification, and Rachel is named as the one that is weeping. But there's still, in the sense of this, because of the language of it, there's hope and there's still peace. There's hope and peace in spite of it. The image of the weeping Rachel is deployed then in Matthew 2 to describe what happens because of Herod. He is trying to kill the Christ child. And so all of the young boys, 2 years old and younger, are murdered in Bethlehem. Matthew's the only one that includes that. I read in National Geographic that Herod was not capable of such, and yet he had hundreds of thousands of people killed all the time. So yes, he is capable of that, and there's evidence that he's capable of that. And so here we have a story that then Matthew quotes the Old Testament narrative, and he ties Rachel's weeping not only for her children of Israel, but also for the children in Bethlehem and he also ties it in to what's going on in our experience in our world today. The gospel shout is rooted in joy. This came from a commentary I read. But to be meaningful, it must reflect an understanding of the loss, the fear, and the pain of the core of human existence. When we lived in Dawsonville, the parsonage was right across the street from a house that always had a big Christmas display. They had a nativity, big nativity set, and it was the nativity set with the little people that are made of plastic and you stick a light in their back. You know what I'm talking about? And they're big and they look extremely realistic. But they're big and plastic, and you can still get those, I think. Jim Martin has the set. And so they had this thing, and they had Jesus, and they had Mary and Joseph, and I think they had a sheep and a little donkey and a shepherd. And the interesting thing in their nativity, and they had it every year we were there, they also had Mr. and Miss Santa Claus in the nativity. It's a nice touch, I guess, and if it works for them. I had a friend of mine that was serving a church up in Tennessee, and the people said, "We're going to decorate for Christmas," and he was like, "Yay!" He was this very real church. And he walks in on this first Sunday of Advent, and they have everything decorated. They have an Advent wreath, and then they have Mr. Santa Claus and Mrs. Santa Claus on both sides of the pulpit, life-size versions in plastic. And he was like, "Nice." And you just leave it there and you put you around it. That's what you do. And so they have Santa Claus and Mrs. Santa Claus and in the manger with baby Jesus, and that's really nice. But the thing that always marked this scene was above the manger, they had a blue cross. I don't know why it was blue. It was blue, not like today's popular blue. It was blue back then when it wasn't cool. But it was a huge blue cross. I thought, why do they have a star? Most times people have a star. And then as I grew into my own faith and knowledge and wisdom, really a cross over the manger makes sense, does it not? Because you can't have a manger without a cross. It goes together, doesn't it? Really. Now I don't want you to go put a blue cross on your mangers. Don't worry about that. Jim, leave your little puffy plastic characters where they are. But we can't have Christmas without the shadow of the cross constantly showing this existence. Peace is expensive, costly. I love this line too. It says, "Where believers grieve, Rachel stands ready to lament with them." Where believers grieve, Rachel stands ready. Our world is a mess. One of the guys that was killed in California went to the same high school I went to. He lived in Georgia, lived in Thompson, Georgia for 2 years, Martin. Then he transferred to Macon. I was never in school with him, but he was an environmental scientist, and he was in California. He was a good guy, and in fact shielded one of his coworkers, and she walked away, and he was killed. He was to be married in 2 months. Our world's in chaos. But I'm here to tell you, whatever happens with guns, whatever happens with knives, whatever happens with all that stuff, whatever, it's not going to stop the chaos. The problem is a heart problem. And it says it in Scripture, it says, "Until every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, your world will not have any order." And so that transfers part of that responsibility to us. Who are you serving? Who are you serving? Are you just serving yourself? Because it starts with the change of one individual. And I know it's simplistic, but if you give a thing of peanut butter, that's somebody that's going to know that somebody else that doesn't even know that loves them because Jesus is their Lord and Savior. I'm going to give you this example, but it's not a good example, and it's me, and I don't want you to think I'm telling you this because it's me. I was eating lunch at the best Chinese restaurant in the world. It's the #1 China buffet in Danielsville. They're just nice folks, and it's good. And I could eat Chinese food every day of my life and be happy, I think. And so I was eating there. When I go eat there by myself, Ed, I like to buy somebody's lunch.